So today I'm looking at the basics of toning, how to apply this technique to simple forms in nature, such as plants and food, vegetables, fruit. I'm trying to keep the colour of the subject, the colour of my drawing, fairly just one colour. So this is helpful in the beginning, as it helps you to learn and make use of light and shadow tones, because it's easier for you to understand when drawing in colour. But for this video I'm just drawing in black and white, in grayscale. I haven't used cross contour lines, something I can do in a later video. Cross contour lines are helpful, especially when you're using imaginary light source. But for this exercise, I'm just working on highlights and how that can depending on what surface or texture you're drawing. Whereas what I'm drawing now is the fruit, so it's quite soft, quite waxy, maybe quite grey and dullish in certain areas. I'm drawing blueberries, so blueberries aren't really waxy fruits, they're quite dull, dark, with maybe grey tones. So if you do have a shinier surface, your highlights will be much brighter than a subject that has a dull, ruddy surface. I mean, you might not even see any light hitting your object if it's something like a peach, or blueberry. I would say a peach would absorb light because it's quite furry. So we're trying to create the illusion of 3 dimensions on a flat piece of paper. So at times we'll have to exaggerate to enhance the reflections and the visual elements. Even if you don't see any highlights, you can draw them in, either using your own light source, but the most crucial thing is where you put your light source, where you put your lighting, your reflection. It should be placed either left or right of the centre of your object, and as close to the light source that you are using. The next thing you need to do is to try and draw the actual reflection, rather than colour around it or shade around it. Actually draw a rough idea of what you think that reflection looks like. So it might take on jagged outlines or a circular shape, depending on what the actual light source is. So the things that I'm trying to stay aware of as I draw is that I have a primary light source and then I have a reflective light source. I have a primary light, a primary reflection and a reflective light, if that makes sense. So the primary light is coming from either the window, from the sunlight, or from a light or lamp. But the second light source is coming from a reflection. So when the light hits your object, it will then bounce off the surface that the object is placed on. So that might be a table. The light source will bounce off the table back onto your object, therefore giving you a secondary reflection. And so, in order to create a secondary reflection, you would need to lightly apply a gradient of colour or pencil to that source of light. I mean, your primary light, you might not use anything, and then for the reflective, the secondary light, you might use a light wash of pencil or colour. So it's good as well to create a tone bar so that you can start from 0 to 8 and do where 8 is your darkest tone and 8 being none at all. Then create a step-by-step gradual darkening of that colour or graphite. So ways you can create your own tonal bar would be to first draw 8 or 9 small boxes about 3/4 of an inch wide, 3/8 of an inch wide. Number each one 1 to 9, and then fill each segment with tone. So remember, 1 will be empty because that is the lightest, and 9 will be the darkest. So start from the right hand side and fill in the dark value as saturated as possible, as dark as possible, and leave that as your number 9 value. Leave number 1 empty, and then with the side of your pencil gently lay down a very light layer in box number 2, the lightest as possible. Then for box number 3, maybe use 2 layers with your pencil, so it's just a bit darker than box 2. For box 4, a bit darker than 3, so maybe about 3 layers. For box number 5, maybe about 4 or 5 light layers of tone. Now go to box number 8 and make it very dark, not as dark as box 9, and then go to box number 7, which will be a bit lighter than number 8. So what I did is I got really heavy with box number 9, then with box 8 I did 8 layers, and then I compared it to 9. Could I go a little bit darker? And then I did the same for box number 7. I did about 7 or 8 layers and compared the changes. And then same for box number 6. Box number 6 will be darker than box number 5 but lighter than number 7. So make your adjustments for each box until you have 9 values, tonal values, gradually going from light to dark. And this will now be your guide and your range of values from shadow to highlight. So then this is how you can judge how much reflection, how light, whether it's secondary or primary reflection, and the placement. I think contour would be very useful actually, and something I'll probably cover in another video, because then you could then split the area of your subject or your object into those 8 or 9 values and get a true representation then of any highlights or shadows. So remember to create smooth and seamless toning in your tone bar and when you're shading. So yeah, where you put your highlight is most important, and don't put it in the middle of your object, either place it to the left or the right. And the highlight is where the sun or sunlight hits